The notification on my phone read, "Jessica Rodriguez is now engaged to Brandon Walsh." I stared at the screen, watching my college girlfriend announce her engagement to the heir of Walsh real estate empire. 3 months. 3 months since she told me she needed to focus on her career and couldn't be with someone who was still figuring things out financially. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Jessica Rodriguez and I met during our junior year at the University of Colorado Boulder. She was studying business administration while I was deep into computer science, spending most nights in the lab working on code that I believed would change everything. She was magnetic in a way that drew everyone to her, confident, ambitious, and undeniably beautiful. Her father, Victor Rodriguez, owned a chain of luxury hotels across the Southwest, and Jessica never let anyone forget it. Our relationship started like a fairy tale. She would bring me expensive coffee during my late-night coding sessions, and I would walk her to her BMW every morning after she stayed over in my cramped dorm room. Jessica seemed genuinely interested in my projects, asking detailed questions about the applications I was building and nodding enthusiastically when I explained my vision for the future of digital payments. After graduation, I moved into a small apartment in Capitol Hill, Denver, determined to launch my startup. Jessica moved back to her family's mansion in Cherry Hills Village, but she assured me that distance wouldn't be a problem. "Love conquers all," she used to say, kissing my forehead as she climbed into her luxury car after our weekend dates. The first red flag appeared 6 months after graduation. Jessica's father had invited me to a family barbecue at their estate. The house was everything I expected: sprawling grounds, an infinity pool overlooking the mountains, and a garage that housed more cars than most dealerships. Victor Rodriguez was polite but distant, asking pointed questions about my hobby and when I planned to get a real job. During dinner, Jessica's cousin mentioned that her boyfriend had just been promoted to senior analyst at a prestigious investment firm downtown. "He's making 6 figures already," she bragged. "Jessica, when is Mike going to stop playing with computers and join the adult world?" Jessica laughed it off, but I caught the way she glanced at me, a mixture of embarrassment and something that looked like disappointment. That night, as we sat in her childhood bedroom surrounded by designer everything, she brought up the conversation. "Mike, I believe in you, but my family is asking questions. How long until your app actually makes money?" she asked, her manicured fingers tracing patterns on her silk bed sheets. I explained that building a successful tech company takes time, that the most revolutionary ideas often take years to gain traction. She nodded, but I could see her attention drifting toward her phone, where notifications from her wealthy friend's social media posts kept lighting up the screen. Over the following months, Jessica's behavior became a predictable pattern. She would be loving and supportive when we were alone, but distant and almost apologetic about me when we were around her social circle. At charity galas, she would introduce me as her friend who works in computers. At country club events, she would suggest I wear the expensive watch she bought me so people know you're successful. The breaking point began forming when Brandon Walsh entered the picture. Jessica had mentioned him casually at first. He was the son of Richard Walsh, who owned the largest real estate development company in Colorado. Brandon had recently returned from getting his MBA at Wharton and had joined his father's business. As vice president of development, he's actually quite nice, Jessica told me one evening as we sat in TechStart Cafe, where I spent most of my days working on my platform. "His family does business with ours, so we see each other at industry events." I was deep in code, debugging a payment processing feature that had been giving me trouble for weeks. "That's nice, babe," I replied absently, focused on my screen. Jessica's voice took on an edge. "Mike, I'm trying to tell you about important people in my life. The least you could do is look at me." I glanced up, seeing frustration in her eyes. "Sorry, this is just a critical piece of the puzzle. Once I get this working, investors will finally understand what we're building." She sighed dramatically. "It's always about the app, isn't it? Do you realize we haven't been on a proper date in months? When's the last time you took me somewhere nice, somewhere I could actually post about?" That stung because it was true. Every dollar I had was going into development costs, server hosting, and keeping my tiny apartment. Fancy restaurants and weekend getaways weren't in my budget, and Jessica knew it. Once the platform launches and we start generating revenue, I began. Once, she interrupted. Everything is always once with you, Mike. I'm 24 years old. I want to live my life now, not wait around for some hypothetical future that might never come. The conversation ended with Jessica leaving early, claiming she had a headache. But I noticed she checked in at an upscale wine bar downtown later that evening. Check-in that included Brandon Walsh. Over the next few weeks, Brandon's name came up more frequently in Jessica's stories. He had taken her to a private art showing. He had invited her to his family's box at the Denver Broncos game. He had surprised her with front row tickets to a concert I couldn't afford. It's not romantic, Jessica assured me when I finally brought it up. It's just a family friend who happens to have similar interests. But I wasn't blind. I could see the way her eyes lit up when she talked about the places Brandon took her, the expensive gifts he bought just because, and the lifestyle he could offer. Meanwhile, our dates had become coffee meetings at cheap cafes and walks through free public parks. The pattern was clear. Jessica wanted the security and status that came with wealth, and I was asking her to bet on potential rather than certainty. Every time she looked at her friends posting pictures from luxury vacations and designer shopping sprees, I could see her questioning whether love was really enough to sustain a future with someone who might never be able to provide those things. My parents, Robert and Linda Chen, had immigrated from Taiwan with nothing but determination and education. They built a comfortable middle-class life through hard work and sacrifice. But they couldn't understand Jessica's world of inherited wealth and social expectations. "Son," my father said during one of our weekly dinners, "if she truly loves you, she will support your dreams, not make you feel ashamed of them." But Jessica wasn't trying to make me feel ashamed. She was just living in reality. Her reality included country club memberships, charity board positions, and a social circle where net worth determined social worth. Mine included 18-hour coding sessions, ramen noodles for dinner, and the unwavering belief that my digital payment platform would revolutionize how people handled money. The writing was on the wall, spelled out in designer handbags and luxury car payments that my developer salary could never match. The final blow came on a rainy Thursday evening in March. I had been working for 16 straight hours, finally cracking the encryption algorithm that would make my payment platform unhackable. My eyes burned from staring at code, but the breakthrough felt monumental. This was the piece that would separate my platform from every competitor in the market. I called Jessica immediately, unable to contain my excitement. "Jess, you have to hear this. I just solved the security framework that's been holding us back for months. This changes everything." Her response was lukewarm at best. "That's great, Mike. Listen, can we talk tonight? I'm coming over." Something in her tone made my stomach drop, but I was too exhausted and elated to process it properly. "Order us some Chinese food. We can celebrate. Don't order anything. I won't be staying long." Jessica arrived at my apartment, looking like she had stepped out of a magazine spread. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, and she wore a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She rarely dressed up like that for our casual evenings together, which should have been another warning sign. She sat on my secondhand couch, carefully arranging her designer purse beside her, and looked around my small living space with what I can only describe as pity. The contrast was stark. Her polished perfection against my humble apartment with its mismatched furniture and walls covered in whiteboards full of code diagrams. "Mike, we need to have a serious conversation about our future," she began, her voice taking on the tone she used in business meetings. I closed my laptop and sat across from her, suddenly feeling underdressed in my wrinkled t-shirt and jeans. "What's on your mind?" Jessica took a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about where we're heading, and I don't think we want the same things anymore." The words hit me like ice water. "What do you mean?" "I thought we both wanted to build something meaningful together. Like, be realistic. You're 25 years old, living in a studio apartment, eating instant noodles for dinner. Meanwhile, I have opportunities to build a real life with someone who can provide stability and security." I stared at her, processing what she was. Really saying, Someone like Brandon Walsh? She didn't deny it, which was answer enough. Brandon and I have been spending more time together, and I've realized we're much more compatible. We want the same lifestyle, the same social circles, the same future. What about everything we've built together? What about believing in something bigger than just money? Jessica's laugh was sharp and cold. Mike, wake up. Love doesn't pay for mortgages or provide for children or ensure financial security. I need to be practical about my future, and that future can't depend on some app that might never succeed. I felt something breaking inside my chest, but I kept my voice steady. So that's it? For years together, and you're walking away because I'm not rich enough? I'm not walking away because you're not rich. I'm walking away because you're not realistic. You're chasing fantasies while real life passes you by. Brandon has already bought a house in Cherry Hills Village. He's talking about expanding his father's business internationally. That's the kind of future I want to be part of. I stood up and walked to my window, looking out at the city lights. And what if my platform succeeds? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. What if in 2 years I'm worth more than Brandon could ever dream of being? Jessica joined me at the window, but instead of standing close like she used to, she maintained distance between us. Mike, I can't bet my entire future on a what if. I need guarantees, not promises. Since when did love become about guarantees? Since I grew up and realized that passion doesn't pay bills or provide security for a family. My father built his empire through smart decisions and calculated risks, not romantic idealism. I turned to face her, seeing a stranger where my girlfriend used to be. Your father married your mother when he had nothing. She believed in him and supported his dreams. That was different. That was 40 years ago. The world has changed, and I refuse to struggle the way they did in the beginning. The conversation continued for another hour, but the outcome was predetermined. Jessica had already made her choice, and nothing I could say would change her mind. She was choosing security over uncertainty, established wealth over potential, fortune and guaranteed social status over the possibility of something extraordinary. As she gathered her things to leave, she paused at the door. Mike, I hope you understand this isn't personal. You're a wonderful person, and I genuinely hope your app succeeds. But I can't wait around to find out, so you're choosing money over love. Jessica's expression softened slightly. I'm choosing a future I can count on over a future I have to hope for. After she left, I sat in my empty apartment surrounded by the remnants of our relationship. Her coffee mug was still in the sink from the morning. Her favorite book was still on my nightstand. Her hair tie was still around my wrist from the last time we had been together. I picked up my phone and scrolled through her social media, torturing myself with the evidence I had been ignoring. Photos of her and Brandon at charity events, expensive restaurants, weekend ski trips to Vail. The comments from her friends were telling. Finally found your prince. Oh. And he's perfect for you. And when's the wedding? That night I made 2 decisions. First, I was going to delete everything that reminded me of Jessica and focus entirely on building my platform. Second, I was going to prove that betting against me was the biggest mistake she would ever make. Over the next 2 weeks, I threw myself into work with an intensity that bordered on obsession. I upgraded my development environment, hired 2 freelance developers to help with the workload, began reaching out to potential investors with renewed determination. My business partner David Kim noticed the change immediately. Mike, you look like you haven't slept in days. What's driving this sudden sprint? I explained the breakup without going into too much detail, focusing on how it had clarified my priorities. David nodded knowingly. Sometimes the universe gives us exactly the motivation we need. Jessica couldn't see your potential, so now you get to prove it without someone constantly questioning your vision. David was right. Without Jessica's doubts and social pressures weighing on me, I felt liberated to take bigger risks and pursue bolder strategies. Started networking with other tech entrepreneurs, attending startup pitch events, and refining my business model. With laser focus, 3 weeks after Jessica left, I saw the Instagram post that confirmed what I already knew. Jessica Rodriguez was officially dating Brandon Walsh. The photo showed them at some exclusive charity gala, her in a gown that probably cost more than most people's cars, him in a custom tuxedo with his arm possessively around her waist. The caption read, "Grateful for this amazing man who shows me what real partnership looks like." I stared at that caption for a long time, feeling a mixture of hurt and anger. Real partnership, as if for years of supporting each other's dreams. And building something together meant nothing compared to 3 months of expensive dinners and luxury vacations. That's when I realized Jessica had done me a favor. She had removed the biggest obstacle to my success, my own self-doubt about whether I deserved someone who didn't believe in me. Now I was free to find someone who would celebrate my ambitions, rather than resent them. But first I had a platform to build and a fortune to make. Jessica had chosen money over love, and soon she would discover just how much money she had walked away from. 6 months after Jessica walked out of my life, everything changed in a single phone call. I was sitting in Techstar Cafe at my usual corner table, debugging the user interface for what felt like the 1,000th time, when David burst through the door with an expression I had never seen before. "Mike, you need to check your email right now," he said, practically vibrating with excitement. I glanced at my phone and saw 17 missed calls and 43 unread messages. The subject line of the most recent email made my heart stop. Acquisition offer, crypto secure payment platform. The email was from Amanda Foster, Senior Vice President of Strategic Acquisitions at Technova Solutions, one of the largest financial technology companies in the world. They had been quietly monitoring my platform for months through industry connections and wanted to schedule an immediate meeting to discuss a potential acquisition. "David, are you seeing this number correctly?" I asked, staring at the preliminary figure mentioned in the email. $47 million, David confirmed, his voice barely above a whisper. "They want to buy us out completely. Plus, offer you a 5-year executive contract worth another $18 million. I read the email 3 more times before the reality began to sink in. The payment platform I had built in my cramped apartment, the code I had written during countless sleepless nights, security framework that had taken me months to perfect, it was worth more than I had ever imagined. Within 24 hours, I was sitting in the penthouse conference room of Technova's downtown Denver office, wearing my only decent suit and trying to project confidence I didn't entirely feel. Amanda Foster was a sharp professional woman, in her 40s, who spoke in numbers and timelines with surgical precision. "Mr. Chen, your platform solves problems that major corporations have been struggling with for years. The encryption technology alone is worth the asking price, but combined with your user interface and scalability framework, you've created something revolutionary." The meeting lasted for hours. Lawyers reviewed contracts, technical teams validated my code architecture, and financial analysts projected revenue streams that made my head spin. By the end of the day, I had signed a letter of intent that would make me worth $65 million within 90 days. Walking out of that building, I felt like I was floating above the sidewalk. The city looked different somehow, brighter, full of possibilities that had been invisible just hours before. I called my parents immediately. "Mom, Dad, remember that app I've been working on? The one Jessica said would never amount to anything?" My father's voice was cautious. "Yes, son. What about it?" "Someone just offered to buy it for $65 million. The silence stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. Finally, my mother's voice came through, shaky with disbelief. "Michael, are you being serious right now?" I spent an hour explaining the details, assuring them it wasn't a scam, and listening to my father cry for the first time in my adult life. "We're so proud of you," he kept repeating. "We always knew you would do something extraordinary." The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings, media interviews, and investment opportunities. Tech blogs wrote articles about my overnight success, conveniently ignoring the 4 years of 18-hour workdays that had made it possible. Local news stations wanted to interview the young millionaire changing the tech landscape. The most satisfying moment came when I received a text from my old computer science professor. "Just saw the Denver Business Journal article about your acquisition. Congratulations, Mike. You've proven that vision and persistence always triumph over doubt." That article had included a photo of me standing outside Technova's headquarters, with a caption identifying me as Denver's newest tech mogul. The timing couldn't have been more perfect, because that same week, Jessica and Brandon announced their engagement. The news spread through our mutual social circles like wildfire. Jessica's Instagram post showed a massive diamond ring with a caption that read, "He asked, and I said yes. Can't wait to start our forever with the most amazing man I've ever known." I studied that photo carefully. Jessica looked radiant in the way that expensive jewelry and financial security tend to make people look. Brandon appeared proud and possessive, his arm wrapped around her as if claiming ownership. The comments section was filled with congratulations and heart emojis from friends who had watched our relationship crumble just months earlier. Forever, I repeated to myself, remembering how easily she had discarded for years with me for the promise of immediate wealth. That evening, David and I celebrated the acquisition at an upscale steakhouse downtown, the same type of restaurant Jessica used to hint that she wanted to visit but that I could never afford. As we raised our glasses in a toast, David made an observation that had been forming in my mind for weeks. "You know what's ironic about all this? Lucta left you because she thought you would never be rich enough for her lifestyle. Now you're worth more than Brandon's entire family fortune." I had done the math myself. Brandon's father's real estate empire was valued at approximately $38 million. My personal net worth, after taxes and legal fees, would be just over $52 million. The woman who had chosen money over love had literally chosen less money over more money. But my vindication was about to get even sweeter. 2 days later, I received a call from Emma Thompson, the event coordinator at the Grand Ballroom. Emma and I had met during my college years when she was studying hospitality management. But we had lost touch after graduation. She had always been kind, intelligent, and genuinely interested in other people's dreams rather than their bank accounts. "Mike, I hope this isn't too forward, but I saw the news about your company. Congratulations, I always knew you were destined for something big." Emma's voice was warm and familiar, carrying none of the calculation that had characterized Jessica's tone toward the end of our relationship. We talked for an hour, catching up on the years that had passed and reminiscing about our college friendship. "Would you like to have dinner sometime?" I asked, surprised by my own boldness. "I would love that," she replied without hesitation. Our first date was at a cozy Italian restaurant in Capitol Hill, not far from my old apartment, Emma insisted. On paying for her half of the meal, laughing when I protested. "Just because you're successful doesn't mean you have to pay for everything," she said. "I invited myself back into your life, so dinner is on me." That simple gesture meant more than she could have known. Emma was interested in my success, but she wasn't impressed by it in the way that Jessica had been impressed by Brandon's inherited wealth. Emma asked thoughtful questions about the technology I had developed, the challenges I had overcome, and the vision I had for future projects. Most importantly, she treated me the same way she had treated me in college when I was just another struggling student. Her affection wasn't contingent on my net worth, and her respect wasn't based on my ability to provide luxury. Over the next month, Emma and I began spending more time together. She showed me parts of Denver I had never explored, introduced me to her friends who worked in art and education and nonprofit organizations. It reminded me that success was about more than just financial achievement. Emma had built a successful event planning business from scratch, specializing in weddings and corporate functions. She was proud of her independence and passionate about creating memorable experiences for her clients. When she talked about her work, her eyes lit up with the same intensity I felt when discussing technology. "I love bringing people's dreams to life," she explained one evening as we walked through Washington Park. "There's something magical about taking someone's vision and making it reality." As our relationship deepened, I began to realize what I had been missing with Jessica. Emma celebrated my ambitions instead of questioning them. She encouraged me to take risks instead of demanding guarantees. She was building her own future instead of waiting for someone else to provide it for her. 3 months after Emma and I reconnected, I made a decision that would change both of our lives forever. I was going to ask her to marry me, and I was going to make sure Jessica knew exactly what she had given up. The opportunity for perfect timing presented itself when Emma mentioned that the Grand Ballroom had been booked for a major society wedding on Saturday evening. As she described the elaborate preparations for what sounded like Denver's social event of the season, I realized she was talking about Jessica and Brandon's wedding. The bride's family spared no expense, Emma said as we reviewed the venue. Set up on Friday afternoon. Crystal chandeliers, imported flowers, a 12-piece orchestra. The guest list reads like a who's who of Colorado's business elite. I watched Emma coordinate with florists and caterers, directing the transformation of the ballroom into something that belonged in a fairy tale. Her professionalism was impressive, but I could see the stress in her eyes as she managed dozens of moving parts simultaneously. "This is beautiful work," I told her as she adjusted the positioning of an enormous floral arrangement. "Jessica always dreamed of having her wedding in a space like this." Emma paused and looked at me carefully. "Jessica, as in your ex-girlfriend?" "Jessica, the very same. She's marrying Brandon Walsh tomorrow evening." Emma's expression shifted to concern. "Mike, are you okay with this? If being here tomorrow is going to be difficult..." I took her hands, feeling the calluses from years of hard work that Jessica had never possessed. "Emma, I have something important to ask you, and the timing might seem strange, but I need you to trust me." I dropped to one knee right there in the middle of the ballroom, surrounded by flowers and fairy lights that had been arranged for another woman's wedding. The ring I pulled from my pocket was a custom-designed piece that had cost more than most people's cars, but more importantly, had been chosen specifically for Emma's elegant, understated style. "Emma Thompson, you've shown me what it means to be with someone who loves me for who I am, not what I can provide. Will you marry me?" Emma's eyes filled with tears as she stared at the ring, then at me, then back at the ring. "Mike, are you serious? Right now? Right here?" I've never been more serious about anything in my life. I know the timing is unconventional, but I realized I don't want to wait another day to start our forever. She said yes through her tears, and as I slipped the ring onto her finger, I felt a completeness that I had never experienced with Jessica. Emma's happiness was genuine, unfiltered by calculations about social status or financial advantage. "There's one more thing," I said as we embraced. "How would you feel about getting married tomorrow? I know it sounds crazy, but I've already spoken to Judge Morrison, and he's agreed to perform the ceremony. We could have a small, intimate wedding right here before the evening event." Emma stared at me in amazement. "You want to get married? Tomorrow? At the same venue where your ex is having her reception?" "I want to marry you as soon as possible." "The location is just coincidence," I said, though we both knew it wasn't entirely coincidental. Emma considered this for a long moment, then broke into a grin that lit up her entire face. "You know what? Yes, let's do it. But I have one condition. I want your parents there, and I want my sister to be my maid of honor." "Oh, done. I'll make the calls tonight." The next morning, I woke up in my new penthouse apartment downtown, one of the first purchases I had made after the acquisition closed. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the mountains in the distance and the city bustling below. In 12 hours, I would be married to Emma. In 14 hours, Jessica would arrive at the same venue for her own wedding reception. My parents arrived that afternoon, still somewhat bewildered by the rapid changes in my life but glowing with pride. My father had bought a new suit for the occasion, and my mother couldn't stop talking about how much she liked Emma. She reminds me of myself when I was young, my mother told me as we waited in the ballroom's preparation room. Independent, hard-working, and completely unimpressed by material things. That's exactly why I fell in love with her, Mom. At 4 o'clock, Judge Morrison began our ceremony in the intimate setting Emma had created using leftover flowers and decorations from the evening setup. Emma wore a simple but stunning dress she had bought that morning, and I wore the custom suit I had ordered from the same tailor who dressed Denver's tech executives. As we exchanged vows, Emma's words were everything Jessica's had never been. "Mike, I promise to support your dreams, celebrate your successes, and stand by you through every challenge. I choose you not for what you can give me, but for who you are and who we become together." My own vows felt like they were written for this exact moment in this exact place. "Emma, you saw my potential when I had nothing to offer but hope. You believed in me when I barely believed in myself. I promise to spend every day proving that your faith in me was well placed.
Ow.
Judge Morrison pronounced us husband and wife. At 4:30 in the afternoon, as Emma and I kissed, sealing our marriage, I felt a profound sense of rightness about everything that had led to this moment. We were celebrating with champagne and cake when Emma's event staff began arriving to transition the space for the evening reception. Emma, now wearing her wedding ring alongside her new engagement ring, directed the changeover with the same professional expertise she brought to every event. "Mrs. Chen," I said, testing out her new name, "you're working on your wedding day?" "Mr. Chen," she replied with a smile, "this is exactly where I want to be." At 7:30, guests began arriving for Jessica and Brandon's reception. Through the windows of the preparation room, I could see luxury cars dropping off Denver's social elite. Jessica arrived in a limousine that was longer than my first apartment, wearing a wedding dress that probably cost more than most people's annual salary. Emma squeezed my hand. "Are you ready for this? I've been ready for this moment for 8 months." We made our entrance into the reception at exactly 8 o'clock. Just as Jessica and Brandon were finishing their first dance, the timing was perfect. We appeared just as the music ended, and the room's attention was shifting to the newlyweds. The reaction was immediate and electric. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Champagne glasses paused halfway to lips. Every head in the room turned to stare at the couple who had just walked in wearing wedding attire and matching gold bands. Jessica saw me first, and her face went through a series of expressions that I had never seen before. Confusion, recognition, shock, and then something that looked like panic. She said something to Brandon that made him turn in our direction, and his face immediately darkened when he recognized me. I guided Emma through the crowd, toward the bar, nodding politely at people I recognized from Jessica's old social media posts. The whispers followed us like a wake, and I caught fragments of conversations that confirmed everyone knew exactly who I was and what my presence meant. "Is that Mike Chen? Jessica's ex-boyfriend? He's wearing a wedding ring. Did he just get married? Wait, isn't that the tech guy who sold his company for millions? He's worth more than the Walsh family now.
Ice.
Jessica must be dying right now." Emma handled the attention with grace, introducing herself to people as if this were any other social gathering. Her confidence and poise made it clear that she belonged in this room, not because of money or connections, but because of her own accomplishments and character. The moment I had been anticipating finally arrived when Jessica approached our table. She looked flawless in her designer wedding gown, but I could see the strain around her eyes and the slight tremor in her hands as she clutched her bouquet. "Mike," she said, her voice carefully controlled, "I didn't expect to see you here." I stood and extended my hand formally. "Jessica, congratulations on your wedding. You look beautiful." Then I turned to Emma. "I'd like you to meet my wife, Emma Chen. We were married this afternoon." The word wife hit Jessica like a physical blow. Her composed facade cracked just enough for me to see the woman who had once cried in my arms about leaving for college. "Your wife?" Jessica repeated, as if the words didn't make sense. Emma stood and offered her hand with genuine warmth. "It's lovely to meet you, Jessica. Thank you for having us at your reception. Everything is absolutely gorgeous." Jessica shook Emma's hand mechanically, her eyes fixed on the engagement ring and wedding band that sparkled on Emma's finger. I had chosen well. The ring was larger and more expensive than Jessica's own, though that hadn't been the point. "When did you two?" Jessica began, then seemed unable to finish the question. "We reconnected 3 months ago," I answered. "Emma and I actually knew each other in college before you came back from studying abroad. She's the one who coordinated this beautiful reception for you." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Jessica was staring at the woman who had created her dream wedding, the woman who had married her ex-boyfriend, the woman who was now wearing a ring that cost more than most people's houses. Brandon appeared at Jessica's side, his arm sliding possessively around her waist. "Chen," he said with forced casualness. "Interesting timing for a wedding. Brandon, congratulations. Hope you two will be very happy together." I raised my champagne glass in a toast to choosing love over everything else. The toast was met with uncomfortable silence from Jessica and Brandon, but Emma clinked her glass against mine with a smile that conveyed everything I needed to know about our future together. 3 years later, Emma and I were sitting on the deck of our mountain home in Aspen, watching our 18-month-old daughter Sophia toddle around the garden while our golden retriever kept a protective eye on her. The house was everything we had dreamed of when we designed it together. Modern but warm, luxurious but comfortable. A place where we could build memories rather than just display wealth. Emma had expanded her event planning business into a full-service luxury hospitality company. With offices in Denver, Aspen, and Vail, her success was entirely her own. Built through talent and determination rather than inheritance or marriage, she wore her accomplishments with the same quiet confidence that had first attracted me to her. The Henderson wedding proposal came through, Emma announced, looking up from her laptop. They want us to coordinate their daughter's wedding at the Four Seasons in Jackson Hole. The budget is extraordinary. I bounced Sophia on my lap, marveling at how she had Emma's intelligent eyes and my stubborn determination. Are you going to take it? I think so. It would be our biggest contract yet, and the exposure could open doors throughout the Rocky Mountain region. This was Emma, always pushing forward, always growing, always believing that the next opportunity could lead to something even better. She never rested on past achievements or expected success to be handed to her. My own ventures had continued to flourish after the initial acquisition. I had started 2 new companies, invested in several promising startups, and established a foundation that provided coding education to underprivileged students throughout Colorado. The financial freedom allowed me to take bigger risks and pursue projects that mattered to me personally rather than just professionally. David called earlier. I mentioned adjusting Sophia's hat against the afternoon sun. The artificial intelligence platform is ready for beta testing. 3 major banks want to pilot the fraud detection system. Emma smiled at me with the same enthusiasm she had shown for my projects since our college days. That's incredible, Mike. You're revolutionizing financial security again. Contrast with my old life struck me constantly. Jessica had seen my ambitions as obstacles to the lifestyle she wanted, while Emma saw them as adventures we could share together. Jessica had made me feel guilty for working long hours, while Emma built her own empire and understood the dedication that success required. My phone buzzed with a notification that I almost ignored, but the name that appeared on the screen stopped me cold. It was a LinkedIn message from Jessica Rodriguez Walsh. Who is it? Emma asked, noticing my expression. Jessica. She sent me a professional message. Emma raised an eyebrow but didn't seem threatened or concerned. What does she want? I opened the message reluctantly, curious despite myself. Hi, Mike. I hope this message finds you well. I saw the article about your new AI company in Forbes, and I wanted to reach out about a potential business opportunity. My husband Brandon and I are expanding Walsh Development into commercial tech spaces, and we think there might be synergy between our projects. Would you be open to a meeting? Best regards, Jessica. Emma looked at me expectantly. Well, she wants to discuss a business partnership. Apparently, Brandon's real estate company is moving into tech development. Emma laughed, a sound that held no malice but plenty of amusement. Let me guess. They need investors or technical expertise for their expansion. I reread the message, noting the careful professional tone that couldn't quite hide the desperation underneath. It sounds like they're struggling to break into a market they don't understand. Are you going to respond? I thought about it for a moment, then deleted the message without replying. Some chapters are meant to stay closed. Later that evening, curiosity got the better of me and I looked up Walsh Development online. What I found confirmed Emma's instincts. Brandon's company had been trying to diversify into tech real estate for 2 years, with mixed results. Of their projects had failed to attract major tenants. Their stock price had dropped significantly over the past 18 months. Meanwhile, Jessica's social media presence had evolved from the carefree luxury lifestyle she used to display to something more subdued and professional. Her posts focused on charity work and business networking, rather than designer handbags and exotic vacations. The change suggested that the Walsh family fortune wasn't as limitless as she had once believed. I showed Emma what I had found, and she shook her head with something that might have been pity. She chose security over love, but she didn't choose As well as she thought she did. No, she didn't. But in a way, I'm grateful to her. If she hadn't left me for Brandon, I might never have pushed myself to achieve what I have now, and I definitely wouldn't have found you. Emma curled up beside me on the couch, Sophia sleeping peacefully between us. Do you think she regrets her choice? I considered this question seriously. I think Jessica regrets that her choice didn't turn out the way she expected. But I don't think she regrets choosing money over love. That's who she is fundamentally. Someone who believes security trumps everything else. And now, I'm with someone who chose love over security, even though it turned out we could have both. Emma had indeed chosen love over security. When I proposed to her, my acquisition hadn't been finalized yet, and she had no guarantee that my success would continue. She said yes because she loved me, not because she loved my bank account. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. Jessica had left me to marry someone she thought was richer, only to discover that I had become wealthier than both of them combined. She had chosen immediate gratification over long-term potential, and that decision had cost her more than she could have imagined, but the real victory wasn't financial. The real victory was the life Emma and I had built together, a partnership based on mutual respect, shared dreams, and genuine affection. We celebrated each other's successes instead of competing with them, supported each other's ambitions instead of resenting them. We built wealth together instead of marrying into it. As I watched Emma read bedtime stories to Sophia, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the path my life had taken. Jessica's rejection had forced me to become the man I was meant to be, and it had cleared the way for me to find the woman I was meant to be with. Sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is to show you their true character before it's too late. Jessica had done me that favor, even if she hadn't intended to. She had chosen money over love, and in doing so, she had given me the freedom to find both. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.